Hey, for the next 6 weeks, I'll be running a giveaway. From now until May 22nd, you can subscribe to win a free autographed copy of The Littlest Elephant by Katherine Applegate. All you need to do is go to the link in the description and click subscribe at the top of the page. This is for listeners within the United States. Go to bookfairepod.riverside.com, click on the subscribe link, and fill out your email address and name, and you will be entered to win a free signed copy of The Littlest Elephant by Katherine Applegate. Welcome to the Book Faire Podcast. My name is Anthony, and this show is all about children's literature and the freedom to read. Throughout the coming months, I'm looking to release interviews promoting educational resources for parents to use during summer vacation. Starting this week with an interview with Timothy and Karina Karsten, founders of Global Galactics. If you have any educational resources, feel free to reach out through social media or by emailing bookfairepod@gmail.com. Next Wednesday, we'll have another episode highlighting diverse new releases, as well as another interview on Friday. Let's get started with this week's interview. Good morning, Timothy and Karina. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. How are you?
Hi, Anthony.
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for being generous with your time as well. Can we just get things started by simply introducing yourselves for the audience?
I'm Karina Karsten, and I am one of the founders of Global Galactics.
And I'm Timothy Karsten. I'm another founder of Global Galactics.
And what is Global Galactics?
Global Galactics is an entertainment and education brand that bridges imaginative storytelling with real-world adventures and interactive play. And it's based around an all-encompassing story world where the center of it is SparkStar, a galactic pup who embodies awe. So we focus on inspiring children with awe, wonder, curiosity, and discovery.
And the origin story behind Global Galactics and SparkStar was actually our real-life dog, Sparky, who was a Jack Russell Terrier who lived to be almost 19. And we traveled with Sparky all over the world to 22 countries and took him into classrooms in various places around the world as well. And Sparky has evolved to SparkStar, the galactic pup from the Star series.
And you mentioned that you took Sparky into classrooms. Can you talk a little bit about what your background was in education?
So we've both been educators, not necessarily with kids. I was a camp counselor, but I was not a teacher per se. But I had spent a lot of time working on this and developing this program with Sparky, and therefore was invited into these classrooms around the world and also in Teach for America classrooms in the United States. And it was particularly because of the nature of the content, because what we learned in the classroom was that kids were just so empowered by Sparky's visits that the teachers kept sending us reviews of our visits and were so excited, and more teachers wanted us to come as a result of the response of children.
And can you talk a little bit about what led the two of you to forming Global Galactics as an education and entertainment industry?
Well, we actually, our nickname for ourselves was Global Galactics. We always really appreciate the earth, the ecosystems that we live in here. It's so special. And so having your feet on the earth, but always looking up at the stars, reaching for the stars. And we feel like that's the world that children are growing up in today, that they may be exploring outer space, maybe even doing work there, but we live here on this beautiful planet. So that was kind of the inspiration of Global Galactics, is to share more of that. But of course, with Sparky being an inspiration to help children, educators, and families.
Right, and we learned through our experience traveling and being with children all over the world and families that there was kind of a missing link in terms of providing for them content and material that would really help them, inspire them. And because our experience with Sparky was so much about awe and wonder, as we continue to dive in, we learn more and more the value of awe and wonder in curriculum. And it's that there was a missing, again, link for it and a need for it in the classroom as well as at home.
And that is a phrase that comes up frequently with SparkStar and Global Galactics as a whole, is awe and wonder. And I'd love to hear the two of you just, what is the importance of awe? Why is it simply not enough to be curious, but to have awe?
So we've learned that awe is actually a precursor. Awe and wonder brings forward curiosity. So the more the children are able to experience that awe, those experiences of awe and wonder, like looking up at the sky or seeing something that is just beautiful and sounds amazing, that it actually sparks more curiosity in children. And we've learned that through peer-reviewed research, that awe is great for kids' brains. It helps to develop the brains in positive ways. It also increases well-being, life satisfaction, and a positive mood for kids. It also produces less about me and more about we, and that provides perspective for children.
And, if you want to know more about the science of awe, you can certainly visit our website, globalgalactics.com, where we lay it out. What we love to do, Anthony, is we love to take children on awe ventures, and SparkStar is the embodiment of awe. He takes kids across the earth and across the universe with his cast of friends that includes a capybara, a turtle, a chicken, a fox, and they go solving problems that maybe some other character that's gotten themselves into, or there's an issue. And we want kids to really be inspired to ask questions about the world, about nature.
And in addition to what Karina shared about his Earth friends, SparkStar also has a whole crew of galactic friends that kids and their families get to learn and experience. So SparkStar takes people, the animals and others, up onto his spaceship and takes them up into the space, and they meet his galactic friends and they go on adventures and they learn science and all kinds of things about the galaxy.
And just very briefly, can you talk a little bit about the kinds of content that we have available with SparkStar? Where can people find all of these adventures?
Great. So our first two books are The Spark at the Center of the Universe, which is our first title and focuses on, from the littlest to the biggest, everything is connected and important.
And it's been compared to the classic, The Little Prince, which is a great compliment.
And our second book is The Awesome Wonders of Your World, where SparkStar takes readers to 20 amazing places around the earth. And our books and our animated storytelling, our podcasts, our sing-along songs, our albums, and our downloadable activity packs are available on Amazon.com, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble. It's also available on Spotify and the music outlet, podcast outlets, and also on our website, globalgalactics.com. And our YouTube channel is at SparkStar Kids.
And there's one thing that you mentioned in there, because you talked about there's audio, video, there's the books. And the one thing that I really want to hammer in on, because we're approaching summer vacation, is the inclusion of educational packets. A lot of times, parents, and especially parents who are involved in their children's education, will sometimes give them a book to read. Typically fiction, anything that gets a child interested in reading, I think is wonderful. But I think that there is definitely a niche for educational material that parents can kind of have interactive learning and stories with their children. Can you talk about the some of the more educational and more technical sides of Global Galactics that SparkStar kind of opens the door into?
Absolutely. Well, our content is made for families and educators of children 5 to 9. What we see is that there's a lot for early childhood, but not so much for 5 to 9 year olds. And so we focus on providing from each of our stories, our books, or our episodes that prompt, like you said, a bridge to, yes, explore that content in the story, in the book, in the episode, but then take you offline to look up from your book, look up from your screen, look around in your backyard or in your family or friends, and look within to gain some confidence. So those are the things that we focus on.
And also, so in, for example, in Awesome Wonders of Your World, there's a QR code with each place that they visit, and the child can then go to listen or dance along with a sing-along video. Then there's an activity packet that the parents can download and print, and that takes them back to referencing what is in there. In addition, with each location that the children visit, there are profound questions that are asked of the kids, because the books not only talk about, this particular book not only talks about places to visit, but also reflects it back to kids. And what about a place is powerful? What within you is powerful? If that place, like in Egypt, the pyramids, it's strong, they're powerful. What inside you is strong and powerful? So it empowers children through the content.
Yeah, there's a lot of social emotional learning as well as STEM, geography, culture to discover and then take into those activity packets. Every single book that we have has an activity packet with it.
In addition, Anthony, our content has just begun to be tested in schools, and we have some wonderful feedback from first grade classroom already that children are really engaging with the content. They ask the teacher for more of the content, and it's really used to supplement. So kids are using it and teachers are using it in breaks and snacks, snack time, etc., to engage kids in other learning outside of the traditional classroom materials.
And we focus on embodied learning. So we love kids reading. We love kids, asking questions. We love kids, pondering something that relates to them and their own life. But we also love them getting around and dancing and singing and learning through that embodied experience.
Right, and that's why we've noted that the educators in classrooms are very excited by our content, because it's not just one type of learning, it's multifaceted learning.
And Karina, you called it embodied learning. It's active, it's moving, it's listening, it's activities, it's interactive. And there was something
Yes.
that was brought up earlier about looking within and asking grounded questions. And that's something that I think speaks to Global Galactics from its very inception with its own name. Global, as in the world around us, it's grounded, and galactics, it's looking up at the greater universe. It is simultaneously internal and looking out at the external. Can you talk a little bit about, and this is something that I really loved, and I would love to hear y'all talk a little bit more about, is it taps into what children do best, which is ask questions. Everybody knows, every parent and every teacher knows that if a child has a passing interest in anything, they're going to have 1.5 million questions. And it's important to be able to encourage that and direct those questions into learning. And I think that ties greatly into Global Galactics as a whole and the mission and the story behind the importance of awe. And I'd love to hear you two kind of share your thoughts on that.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for that reflection. And you basically nailed it. That's exactly what we're doing. So there's a lot of thought that goes into every story we tell, how we tell it, how we're integrating the learning into it on various fronts. But one of the things that we're really addressing is something called a curiosity collapse. And that is what developmental psychologists have started to see, is that in preschool and before that, kids are asking hundreds of questions a day. But by the age of 8, that starts to tail off, like some part of the spark is dying. Why is that? Well, at birth, there's loads of neurons being activated and connecting. But as we age, the neuropathways start to optimize for what we utilize. And they start to basically delete the things that we're not doing or we're not optimizing for. So when a child 5 to 9 is rewarded by lots of compliance, passive media consumption, and rote memorization, it stops to fire those neurons that want to ask a lot of questions. And so at Global Galactics, we focus on reigniting that spark. It's like, what would you do in space? What would you do out there in that black hole if you had to go there, And so we want to reignite those neurons and ask those big questions.
And in addition, our content, adding on to what Karina shared, our content is positive. It's inspiring. It inspires creativity and imagination, and that all is what sparks question asking as well. And so, with every story, with every piece of content, with every song we put out, it's designed to educate kids in a very positive way. And through our research, we've learned that parents are really desperate in ways to find content that they can really trust, that they know is going to be good for their kids, that's going to empower their children and support the well-being of their family. And that's really at the core of everything we do at Global Galactics.
And Karina, you talked about this, and I thought that this was really impactful. You said that there is a curiosity collapse, and I believe that that on your website you also refer to this as the crisis with kids. And as we're kind of getting to a good flow of like what Global Galactics is and what the stories with SparkStar offer, I kind of want to ask this crisis of the curiosity collapse. Who is being impacted other than just the children? And how do you see Global Galactics and your stories and your content addressing this problem? And this is obviously not just for Karina, but also for Timothy as well. I'd like to hear both of you.
I think that there's so much stimulation in the world today, and there's so much information coming at us. And how do we manage all of that? How do we turn that stimulation into productivity and what's appropriate, frankly? And I think families are really juggling that and trying to find their way through that.
And balance. We all love technology. We all love to view media, but how do you balance that with the real world experience? How do you make the leap, frankly, from content to real world? And I think parents struggle with that all the time because it's hard, because you get so excited about watching something, but how do you make that bridge to the real world? And that's what we really, really focus on. So you're not addicted to the media. You get to enjoy it, but you get to balance it with real experience.
And teachers, that's part of what they have said they like about our content, because it's embodied, because it's diverse, they can weave our content into various ways of learning for
different storylines,
for their different the way kids learn differently. Some learn kinesthetically, some learn visually. So it's really, how can you find one place where you can utilize the content and really it fills a need for many of your students and your diverse children as well, and families. So we're here to support the whole ecosystem, not just kids, teachers, and families.
That is absolutely beautiful, and that's something that I definitely strive for. I always tell people when I'm talking about what I do on this podcast, and I say the ideal audience, like who I'm intending this for, is I want teachers and I want librarians to be hearing it, because there's a lot of really cool, diverse stories out there and a lot of cool new releases. But the audience member, the audience that I picture every time I sit down to record is a parent that is driving their child to school and listening to it on the radio. And that is the thing that I try to keep in mind, because it is not just what is being made for young audiences, something like educational resources, animated stories, all of this. It is written for young people, but we also have to remember that we are trying to bridge the gap between them, the parents, and the teachers. We have to make sure that everybody is involved in the stories that are being told, and everybody is brought in, so that and it's not so much like that it's like helping the parents who need a hand, or it's not just a tool for teachers, but it is having those adults be an engaged part of the children's lives. And that is what makes this work so important.
Thank you so much. And co-viewing, co-listening, being able to engage in thoughtful questioning with each other, those things really, really matter. And that's why when you talked about your audience being in the car listening, it's like, that's why we created our album, SparkStar Rocks, to help kids and families listen together and
sing along,
enjoy learning through songs.
And part of, Anthony, why we've created a team of creatives with us to work with us and build Global Galactics is their parents themselves, and they are dealing with a lot of these same issues that our audience is. So we wanted to make sure that those who are working with us understand the issues that families are facing, that parents and teachers are facing. So we've engaged really
thoughtful parents.
Thank you. So we've engaged very thoughtful parents to really help us create content that will really serve the families and the teachers in the world.
And as we're reaching the end here, I typically have a closing question that I like to ask all guests on the podcast. And as I'm getting into the summertime and I'm trying to find more people with educational resources, I think that this is a fun spin on that question. For context, it is typically, how do you see yourself in the work you do as a writer? And so let's start with Karina. How do you see yourself and the work that you do as an educator?
I would say it's inspiring. It's to inspire. It's to activate. It's to activate awe, and it's to activate discovery and activate wondering about something, from an ant to the galaxy. That's what drives me every day, is to bring that forward for families, for educators, and for children.
And Timothy, how do you see yourself in the work that you do as an educator?
So building a company is education in action in itself. So just every day you're learning something new. You're learning about your teammates. You're learning about the marketplace. You're learning about how your content is received. And because we are constantly engaging with people everywhere we go, everything we do. We're going to be speaking at a college tomorrow to a group of educators and educational students. We are always interfacing and engaging with our audience, with new people in our lives. And we know life is about learning from every moment. So it's a lifelong learning experience. It's a day-to-day learning. And we're learning every day how to make our content better. We're learning about how our next book, what it needs to be so that kids are even more excited about it. So, and we see this by when we're reading to kids ourselves, when we see parents respond to our videos as well as the kids, as we've done historically. And that is an educational process unto itself.
Thank you. That was an interview with Karina and Timothy Karsten, founders of Global Galactics. You can learn more about SparkStar and other content available from Global Galactics at globalgalactics.com. If you appreciate the work being done on this show, there are a number of ways to show your support. First, you can like, comment, or follow wherever you are currently listening to help push the show out to new listeners. Second, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Book Faire Pod. Lastly, you can follow the show on Patreon at patreon.com/thebookfair. Following is free, and there are no posts hidden behind a paywall. Of course, the best way to help the Book Faire podcast grow is simply to share it with a friend, an educator, or a young reader in your life. Thank you so very much for listening, and as always, I'll talk at you next time.